So I was working in London for 10 years in the building and construction industry, and we had 6 building and timber supplies yards around central London. On our largest site in Acton in West London, we had a guy out there named George, and George worked for us for about 30 years, and he worked out in the timber yard pulling loads for customers and for our deliveries to our customers. And one day George was out in the yard, and he went to perform a task that he's done for many, many years over, which was pulling a small order for a customer which consisted of about 20 lengths of 2x1 batten, or 50 by 25 timber batten. On that day though, George decided to pull his forklift up to the pack, which was about shoulder height. It was a full pack in the rack. But on this day, George did something that he's never ever done before. He lifted the forks up to the pack height. He stood in between the forks and the pack of timber and proceeded to open the banding on one end, followed by the other. Now, 2x1 batten has got lots of pent up pressure inside it, so as soon as he unclipped the second strapping, it protruded forward and crushed him between the fork mast of the forklift and the 2x1 battens as they exploded down onto him. Now, George has been there for a long, long time, and as we said, he'd never ever done that or performed that task that way before. Unfortunately, George was crushed pretty severely and he was taken to hospital in an ambulance. I still remember where I was on that day. I was at a training course with my business director who ran our company in East London. And we got the call from actually a friend of mine who I travelled to London with. He was running the site on the day because his boss, the manager at the time, was actually on leave. He called us to let us know that there had been an incident with George, which we were horrified and made our way really quickly back to Acton to deal with the scene. Now, George was in hospital for a long time, and he was quite a sprightly, fit sort of a person, and that incident on that day was very, very close to taking his life. Like I said earlier, he'd never ever done it that way, and still to this day does not know why he performed that task that way. Now, the interesting thing about it is that there were other people on site at the time when George was doing that. They didn't actually stop or speak up or call it out when they saw him climb in between the forks. They knew that he'd never done it before that way, but they really didn't speak up or call it out. And that's something that's really, really important, you know. If you see someone performing something on site, whether they've been there forever or not, if you see that it could cause harm or risk or injury, you know, it's really important you speak up, call it out, stop and explain, you know, why they shouldn't do it, because it could go on to stopping an injury or really saving someone's life. Unfortunately, George didn't come back to work at all. Having been there for 30 years, it caused such significant harm to him that he actually never worked again, which is really, really sad. So the really key thing here is that you know, even if you've been on site or performing tasks for a long time, stop and think about what you're doing. And particularly if it's something you've never done or performed in that way before. The other thing is, if you see your friends or colleagues doing something that you think might cause harm or injury, speak up, call it out, have a chat about it, because who knows, it might stop an injury, harm, or even worse to one of your friends and colleagues. It's really important that we do that. We have the confidence to be able to talk to each other, and that we all go home safe every day.